Running Sentences presents Miles to Go, Part 4, The Runaround. It is time to run, but without a car things aren't exactly easy for Hiram. But he is free? Slightly? This story is written and narrated by Michael Hiram. It is a work of fiction, so any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations within this story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, situations, characters, businesses, events, and/or fictional businesses, characters, events, and so on and so forth is entirely coincidental. Copyright 2026, Michael Henry. All rights reserved. Watching the police move towards his car, Hiram stood for a moment, having backed a few steps away on this sidewalk. He wasn't sure if he should be running or not yet. Well, he was pretty sure he should be, but he wanted to make sure he wasn't noticed running away. The several cops that had been harassing him and had arrested him and put him in handcuffs had all run off towards his car as well, all to try and stop or steal whatever money was in there. Not that they would really find any, but he wasn't going to try and stop them. Not now, anyway. One of the cops did turn and stared at him as he raised his arms to show he was still cuffed and wasn't really going anywhere, though this process was a little difficult since his hands were behind his back. "Stay there, Mr. Hiram," Trooper Rod said. "I've no plans on going anywhere, Trooper." "I doubt it. You're not the trustworthy type," the trooper growled at him. "What? Okay, sure. Everyone is going to my car, so you might want to pay attention to that," the trooper growled at him. "I'm watching you, though." Hiram nodded along, unsure of what else to do as this man continued walking, now backward walking, towards Hiram's car in the nearby commuter lot. Eventually, once this cop, Trooper Rod, had reached the parking lot, he had to turn his back around to gain control of the situation. This, right as a big old tactical military truck pulled into that same parking lot. It was more than enough to encourage Hiram that it was time to make a break for it. He hurried, but made sure not to really run, as he didn't want to draw attention, down a few blocks. The town he had come into was a fairly spread out thing, but the main street here had a dozen or so blocks that it ran down. He went as far as he dared, and then turned into an alleyway of one of them that was occupied by a rather large amount of homeless people. Hiram came to a stop and stared as a woman that was closest to the end of the alleyway looked up from her bed, a piece of trash bag, at him. "What do you want?" she asked. Looking for a way to get away from the cops," he replied. "Ain't we all?" "Well, I guess so, miss. Do you mind if I cut through here and try to escape?" "Course I mind. You're bringing the cops here. Go away." No, I'm not bringing—" Hiram tried to explain, but his words kept fumbling. "You just said you're running from the cops," the homeless lady pointed out. "I'm sort of running from them. None of them are chasing me at this moment." She gave him one long, hard look, then slowly rose, producing a rusty-looking screwdriver that was quite long and quite sharp. It was held tightly in her grasp as she pointed it towards him. "Not worth taking a chance for you. I'm giving you your final warning." "There's no need for threats." "What's going on, Tulip?" A voice came from behind her as a rambling and shambling man came up beside her. He also to be in a terrible state with barely any clothes and quite a few spots of skin that looked blackened from what looked like frostbite to Hiram. He had to grimace at the sight and took a step back and away. This homeless lady, this Tulip, waved her screwdriver towards him as he kept backing up. Emerging back out onto that main street, Hiram looked about. Apparently, the cops had failed to notice his departure, or something else had gone on, because they weren't searching for him around, or something. Maybe they'd been swamped by the citizens trying to get to his car. That would be a nice thought, but also troublesome, since he couldn't really get out of town without it. and there was not much money hidden away inside. Most people would never find the stuff, but there were probably a few who could figure out something. He was frowning to himself, staring back towards where his car was, when he felt a hand grab his shoulder. "Mister, you in trouble?" He turned to a kindly-looking old man who was shorter than him, standing by his side. He wore a sort of janitor's outfit and a rather warm expression on his face. "But why would you ask that, sir?" Hiram asked. "You're wearing handcuffs. That either means it's the cops, or whatever your partner is we're having fun with. Maybe you're just experimenting by yourself, maybe, but maybe you're having fun. No judgment from me, but in the middle of the night in the street, that says something went terribly wrong along the way." Maybe. Do you know how to get handcuffs off and are willing to not ask any questions, as embarrassing as they may be about what happened to me?" The man looked him over and then nodded slowly. "Don't tell anyone, because I do work for the police here, but sometimes they get a little excited by what they might accomplish. Oh, I will be getting out of this town as soon as I possibly can." "Always a good idea, mister." There was a jingling of keys, and then his hands were suddenly free, pulling them back around so that they were in front of him and he could rub at his wrist a bit. Hiram turned thankfully to this man. Thank you. I don't know why you're helping me, but is there some way I can repay you?" "Oh, that wouldn't do at all. I'm better off getting out of here. Don't want things tracked back to me after all, and you don't have time for that, as more cops are now swarming this area." The man had pointed off, back towards where he'd come from, and Hiram turned to look at where he was pointing. This back towards the police station, which now had more than a few cops coming out of it, and that big black military SUV thing was trying to corral up the crowd around his car. Now would obviously not be a good time to just stick around. "Well, thank you for your help, and goodbye then, I guess." "Always nice to help out someone caught up in a system that has no say in the matter." Hiram nodded to him, thought about offering his hand to shake, but the man had turned and shambled off towards another parking lot. He let a few minutes pass, watching to see how things were turning out with his car, at this late hour of night, where all was quiet except for the noise coming from that commuter lot. It felt nice and calming. But waiting around here was never a grand idea, since it wouldn't last forever. Hiram then turned and hurried his way down the road, glancing down to see if the handcuffs were lying on the ground. But somehow they weren't. It took him more than a couple of minutes to reach what was the edge of Main Street. This is where the town split off into a variety of roads, with a couple of them eventually looping off towards a highway not far away. Sadly, he didn't know the roads well enough around here, nor did he have his phone anymore to direct him to where he might go. A big old truck that was mostly a rust bucket came rumbling down the street, going past him, but slowly came to a stop a few feet away, its brakes giving off a loud squeak announcing it had stopped, which caught his attention. The window of the truck rolled down after a moment, and a head poked out. "You need a ride somewhere?" "Are you offering one?" Hiram asked, confused. "Yeah, why else would I stop?" Pausing to think about that, Hiram had no great answer. "I don't know, but thanks for the offer." "You're turning me down?" the driver said, equally confused. "Yeah, I've not had great luck with people right now. Thank you, but I'll pass. If you could, though, I'm headed towards the highway. Which direction is that?" Hiram pointed off towards the roads he thought it might lead to, and the man in the truck looked over, frowned, and then pointed to a slightly different one. "That one there? Well, the only thing there is the highway. You sure you'll be all right?" Spinning his brain to come up with a good answer to that question, Hiram opened his mouth to say something, anything at this point. "Yeah, a friend suggested I take a long walk to think about things that I'd done. Figured a walk to the highway and then back would fit that criteria." He got a long, hard stare for that answer, but the man retracted back into the truck, rolling up his window. It was soon puttering off down the road where red and blue lights were lighting up the roadway. Frowning to himself, he looked about the dark night, lit by a few street lights, and decided perhaps going out into the stretch of large grassland that surrounded the town was a better option than the highway. He then took off, hopping into that land with the hope that he wasn't about to get lost in this as the town turned from a town into just fields. He'd run a good distance, but exhaustion eventually caught up to him, and he figured if he was caught, then so be it. But he needed some damn sleep. Sunlight awoke him, pounding directly against his face, and he had to put up his hand to block it away. It took a moment or more to remember where he was and what was going on with his life. With a sigh, he sat up and looked about the tall field of grass or plants or whatever it was that was blowing in a soft breeze. Then the sound of a barking dog reached his ears, and his mind really snapped too. Was it a cop dog or a regular dog? Could he really risk looking at it? He had to, otherwise all he would do was wind up hiding in the spot, which would eventually get him spotted. Slowly he rose, only to see that the grass was higher than him, right as a dog broke through all of it and slammed into him. "Whoa, Lucky, can't go running around like that. You might run into someone." The voice came to a stop as a man appeared, which Hiram could barely see as he'd been bowled over thanks to the dog licking at his face. When he did manage to peek around, there was a farmer-looking man with faded clothes looking at him rather ruefully. "Well, what have we got here?" "Apologies, I've had a long night, lost my car, and, well, wound up here." "How does one wind up in a field?" "It's quite a story, one that makes little sense, and I will probably make you think I'm crazy." "Gotta start somewhere, perhaps losing your car?" If this was this man's field, he probably owed him at least some sort of explanation, so he collected his thoughts and took in a deep breath and regretted that, as it mostly felt like he was breathing in dog breath. "It was taken by the cops because I was sleeping in it. Then, because one of the cops wanted to follow all the rules in accordance with how things are supposed to be, I was arrested, and then my car was really taken away from me." The farmer gave him quite a quizzical look, like it was a yarn, but one that he wasn't going to believe in. "That's a story and a half," the farmer muttered. "Indeed. Is your home close by, or do you happen to have a phone? I can call a friend of mine, and they'll come pick me up." "Don't carry phones while I'm walking my dog, but my house is not far away. If you promise not to do anything, we can go over there." "I promise, but, please get your dog off me." "Lucky, stop licking the man's face, and let's get all this sorted out. And know that I have a gun, mister." "You look like a farmer, sir. I doubt you go anywhere without a gun these days to protect yourself." "You have one?" Hiram shook his head no. "Don't exactly trust that, but all right, mister." A short hike got them to this man's driveway, which they began to walk up. Hiram led the way with the farmer behind him, up a few paces, the dog running between the two, going back and forth, and trying to get each of theirs attention. A house popped up just off to the right, a flat, single-floor-looking thing with a porch that circled around the building. As they approached it, a rocking chair sat next to the front door, but little else on this porch. "You lead a quiet life?" Hiram asked. "I may do that. Why, you thinking of doing something?" "Only asking questions, since this house looks lonely. I promise I've no interest in trying to do anything to you. It would go against my orders, by the way, to do anything like that." "What do you mean, your orders, mister?" "I have a deal with a few people who want me to do some stuff for them. They're the ones I'm going to call to get me out of this town." The farmer merely grunted as they walked up to that house, then to the porch, and then inside. The phone was in the kitchen, which is where they went to Hiram holding up his hands the whole way to show he meant no harm. The farmer eventually introduced himself as Jr., and he pointed towards that phone with the big revolver he had in his hands. Nodding, Hiram picked it up and found that it was an old rotary phone, so it took a little while to get the number out. Eventually, though, he had the phone to his ear and waited for the line to be picked up. Hello, who is this? It's Hiram. I need a pickup. What happened? The person on the phone demanded to know. People found my car and decided they wanted. Where are ya? Hold on a second. They turned to Junior, who gave him the address. And well, he told the person on the line. A few more sentences were talked over, and then he hung up. Well, what you got going on? The farmer asked. They said they can get here in about 30 minutes. I'll wait outside on the porch. Yeah, you do that. The sun was starting to get hot as Hiram paced his way around the deck, waiting for his friends. The farmer who'd been so kind to him stood in the doorway to his house, behind the doorway screen now, his gun still in hand. About 30 minutes had passed as a sleek black car came cruising up the driveway, and then came to a stop. Two men wearing business sorts of suits, or at least jackets over t-shirts and jeans, got out. One of them was holding a suitcase as they approached. These your friends? The farmer, Jr., asked. Yes, they are. Gentlemen, good to see you. Hiram said this as he stepped off the porch and held out his hand to shake. The first one approached, shook it, and then looked at the farmer. Sir, we saw that you're selling your car, and the one at the end of the driveway. The agent asked. I am. You want to buy it? The farmer said and nodded his head yes, that there was a car. Yes, for our friend here, if you don't mind. Oh, we have an envelope of cash that we think should meet your asking price, as long as the car runs. Runs pretty well. Just don't need it anymore. The other man who was holding the suitcase reached into the pocket of their jacket, and he was pulling out that said envelope. That man then walked over and put it down on the porch before backing away. You can check it over. We will stay here and make sure it's enough, the first agent announced. I got a key right by the doorway here. Let me grab that and I'll look at what you've given me, the farmer replied. While that happened, Hiram got off the porch and went over to the other associate, shaking their hand. He didn't know these two, but they had the look of working for the people who wanted things from him. He found himself eyeing the suitcase and wondering and wanting to ask about it. About the door to the house opened again, and the farmer came out, picking up the envelope and looking it over carefully, and then tossed the keys over, which the man without the suitcase caught. Everything good, sir? The agent asked. This'll be fine, Mr. Suited Man. You just make sure you get all the papers done, the farmer offered. We're already working on it. A phone call from us will have everything finished. The farmer looked doubtfully at them. There wasn't much time to see if he had anything further to say, though, as the two men turned and headed for their car. Hiram hurried after them as that suitcase was stuffed into his hand. The black, sleek car came to a stop at the end of the driveway, with all three of them getting out. There was an old beater of a car with some rust spots on the hood, but it was in decent enough shape for a coupe that was a couple of decades old. The question on Hiram's mind was if it would even run, though that farmer didn't look like the type who would let things sit for too long so that they wouldn't run anymore. Still, there was a chance that he shrugged to himself and began approaching the car, suitcase in hand. Was there any money left in your old car? The voice of his associate named Dennis broke through his haze of getting on with his life. Huh? Well, a couple $100. The job was almost done, but, things happened. Understood. You need to keep working on your assignment. You'll find a fresh supply in that suitcase. Check into a hotel in the next town. You'll get the paperwork for your car there. That last suitcase was supposed to be my last one. Dennis, his associate, nodded to that. Things have changed. You need to keep going, as things and goals have not been achieved yet," Dennis said. "We keep going despite everything?" Hiram replied, slightly confused. "You'll attract trouble, and you'll get out of it. The situation here was a bit special, but we will make good on it. This will be your last case. I ran into trouble here, and no one would let me do anything." "Yeah, we understand, Mr. Hiram. Go do as we ask you to do." "And if I say enough is enough?" Hiram asked. "Then problems occur, and the cops searching for you find you, and then you never get to go home. Do the damn job," Dennis said. "It's not a job that makes sense, though, and it only seems to attract trouble." "And things will get dealt with when they happen," Dennis replied. Hiram wanted to protest some more, but a new phone was thrown to him by the other agent. As they were glaring at him, there really was no escape from this, apparently. "Your bosses are fucked up," Hiram said. "Most bosses are. Goodbye." Dennis said this as the two got back into their car and it roared off down the last of the driveway and into the road. The car that Hiram now had turned out to mostly be a piece of crap. Things kept looking like they wanted to stop working, but somehow kept going. Hiram had gotten the car going and onto the highway, but after that, those things felt like one long joke. His gas gauge was off, or so it looked, and since he wasn't sure, he found a gas station a couple hours out of town, and now he stood next to a pump, filling it up. A young couple that was in the pump behind him was giving off the feeling that they were still in the early stages of a relationship. The young woman sauntered off towards the rest area, giving a little wave goodbye. "Ah, what is love?" the man said with a sigh. "It is a lot of things to a lot of people, sir." "Yes, but not much without having that special someone by your side." "So it goes. Most people barely get the chance or time to spend with that special someone," Hiram said with a shake of his head. "Oh, too true, mister. Plus, you always need to have money to keep everything happy and moving along." The pump turned off as it had finished filling the tank to his new car, so Hiram removed it as he studied this man. He, Hiram noted, also had that look of a young man who had yet to make his mark on the world, or earn much money, hence all of this talk. But it was also suspicious, with the way things had been going for Hiram lately. "Money won't solve everything," Hiram pointed out. "Oh, but it goes a long way, doesn't it, mister?" the man said. "A long way, and it creates new and different problems for you," Hiram offered, trying to convince him that it wasn't a good idea to be asking for money. "But you can get rid of some of those problems before you, with the help of that money." Hiram found himself shaking his head. This guy was set in his ways and wasn't going to listen to him. He sighed to himself as he closed the gas cap and the gas tank door for the car. Once again, he was on the lookout for people who could use some money, but simply giving it away was not what he was supposed to do. He felt lucky that gas stations were one of the few places left that were willing to accept cash, which made his life that little bit easier. "Sorry, couldn't be much of a help to you in that matter." "Not many could or would, sir. Life is all complicated, and the gift of giving is rare these days." The man nodded along as he said this, apparently really deep in his own thoughts. "Are you hoping your prayers reach out to the man who's rumored to be going around giving out money? Is that why you're crying out into the world?" The man looked over and offered a small, sad grin. "I would be a fool not to, but I also heard that someone like that was captured by the cops. They claim they have him and are interrogating him as we speak," the man said. "You shouldn't believe all you hear, sir," Hiram replied. "And why not?" the man, who was still pumping gas, asked. "The cops want things to keep going as they are. No questions, you follow them, and their rules exactly as they dictate." So, just because they want that, I shouldn't listen to them, mister? The man asked. Hiram shook his head no. I'll correct myself. Listen to them, but feel free to question their motives. Don't trust them when they say they have someone like that, because usually they're up to something. Sounds like you have a vendetta against them. Not a smart thing to have these days. These days when they do control everything and anyone who looks the wrong way. You'll have to be careful. Offering this man a grin, Hiram nodded along. That goes for you as well, though, Hiram offered and then continued. Praying out loud for money to come your way will prick the ears of any law enforcement officer. They don't want people to get above their station. And so it goes. We're both in trouble. Can't say anything about money or the world looks at you funny, the man said. The young woman the man had been smitten with and been talking to earlier emerged from the station and hurried over with a big smile on her face. Well, it's been nice talking to you, Hiram said and waved goodbye. Adios, stranger, the strange man said, waving goodbye as well. With that said, Hiram hurried his way back to his hot car, hoping that it wasn't going to quit working on him. He watched the couple in his rear-view mirror for a second. Part of him thought about giving them some money, but he felt they would probably be better off without it, at least for the moment. It was a late evening by the time he found the next town in the shambles of a place that was a hotel. It had seen better days, many years ago, judging by the worn spots in the carpet and the peeling wallpaper. Still, it was only a spot to stay, and his associates had told him to stay here for the night. Perhaps they'd been so kind to book him a room in advance. He stood in the lobby staring at the clerk at the counter was full on asleep as he strolled up to it and gently tapped the bell on the counter. With a start, the worker snapped awake and looked around. Excuse me, I'm looking for a room for the night. You wouldn't happen to have one, would you? Hiram asked. What? Yes, I have a room. Do you have a reservation? Not sure. Some friends of mine might have called ahead. My name is Hiram. He pulled out a new wallet and ID that had also been given to him by his associates and presented them to the clerk. Or at least his ID to the clerk. They were taken and looked over carefully, and then the worker began typing away on their keyboard, looking at a nearby computer screen. One that looked like it had been left in the last century, and that this clerk was such a really slow typer, and so it took a minute or so before the clerk would look up at him. There is a room reserved for you, yes. Good. I was told that I might have some mail coming for me in a package that would be delivered. Assuming it's going to this address since this place is the only hotel in town, Hiram said. We haven't received anything for any of our guests. Hiram held out his hand as he took back his ID. I was told it would probably be coming in the morning. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be a burden to you. There was a look of surprise from the worker, who seemed generally shocked that anyone would think about such a thing. No trouble for us, the clerk replied. Great to hear, and get out of your way now. If you would give me a key? Yeah, no problem. Here you go. Enjoy your one-night stay at the hotel of the city. You're in room 212. It didn't take long for Hiram to fall into his hotel room bed and simply pass out. Sleep was short, though, and a knock on his door brought him back. He blinked a few times, realized he hadn't turned off the lights, and that there was a noise coming from his door. Slowly he rose up and went towards it, fighting back a yawn and trying to wake up. He peeked through the peephole in the door to see a guy in khakis and a polo shirt, one that sort of looked like a uniform of some sort. Who is it? He called out to him. The name is Mr. Barco, Mr. Hiram. Oh, we should have a chat. What is it you're looking to chat about? Your friends, this stranger said. Well, I don't have any of those, sir. Fine, then your associates, who have been doing you more harm than good. If you want to escape from their grasp, then we need to have a chat about what's going on. Hiram thought about this for a second, then unlocked the door to open it, then carefully put his foot, acting it as a stop, so it would open only a little bit, and just enough so that he could see this man fully. You have some sort of proof that any of this is happening? Hiram requested. I have some papers in my briefcase. Can I read them? Hiram asked, his patience running a little thin. Open the door further and you can. To this, Hiram moved his foot a little bit further back and then brought the door to it, keeping it mostly closed. Then, the door was mostly more of an inch open now. There you go, more open. You know what I meant, Mr. Hiram. I do, Mr. Bargo, but I've also been told not to trust anyone, so... Fine, we can both play this game. I will give you a sheet, Mr. Bargo said. Fine, give me one sheet and make me want to open this door further. The man grumbled, but moved away from the door so that he could open his briefcase. Setting it down onto the ground in front of him, it was popped open and this man shuffled through things until he came up with something. Here you go, this Mr. Bargo said as he offered a piece of paper through the door. Do you mind if I close the door as I read this? Yes, I do. Good to know. Too bad. Having taken that paper already, he clicked the door shut and looked it over for a second, then looked through the window to remind himself of how much it might open. The answer was really no. It would only open an inch or two and he couldn't escape from it. And there was also the problem of being on the second floor and dropping down a distance. Mr. Hiram, I will warn you that I have a key that will get me into your room. I'm not afraid to use it, but I wanted to give you the chance to do the right thing first. What is the right thing, Mr. Bargo? He said this as he put his back in weight to the door to stop it from opening, then turned his attention back to the paper. It was a financial sheet, one talking about how a group, in this case AB and an AVBC, were funneling money out of their organizations. It was suspicious, sure, but nothing he would really care about. The right thing is understanding what's going on. You currently do not, Barker replied. I see, and this paper doesn't convince me that you know what you're talking about. Perhaps you can offer an explanation as to why I would care about it? Those two companies on that piece of paper run the government, which begs the question, why are they ruling that people shouldn't have money, yet are giving people cash, cold, hard cash, to pass out to people? So it's a faction that wants to undo whatever the big heads of the company have decided upon. Not hard to come up with something that sounds plausible. Yes, but these organizations have bought the entire government. Who does that? They run everything. Someone who wants to control the world. Businesses have been doing that for a while, ever since that dreaded presidency that broke everything. I mean, all because they wanted to run the government like a business. Granted, from what I've heard, it's been going on for longer than that, but everyone really gave up after that, Hiram said. That doesn't answer my question, Mr. Hiram. He had to shrug in return. In the end, it didn't really matter much to him about any of this. The promises made to him would be kept, and they had no way around that. Hiram was fine doing this sort of job until it was over, or even if it took a couple of more suitcases filled with cash to do so. He'd been so lost in his thoughts, he'd failed to pick up the sound of a faint drill coming from the bottom of the door, and to his right, sort of sticking through the doorway crack and moving upward towards the hinge panel with speed. What the fuck are you doing? We need to get in, sir, Barker replied. Who is we and why? The blade caught the hinge connector and started grinding away. It didn't take long for the saw to do its work, and he noted another saw that had been working on the upper hinge. Pushing with all his might, he tried to keep the door in its place, but it was heavy, and it already felt like someone was pushing back on it. End of part 4 of Miles to Go. Thank you for listening.